This is not scheduling like in the demon. This is scheduling your life, right? So one way I think about you all is you guys are like mental athletes. You're not, maybe you are athletes for some other thing, but like when it comes to the LSAT, right, you are like athletes in the sense that you're training for something. If everything else in your life is not like really together, then your performance on the test, your performance while you're studying is not going to be great. If you're tired, if you got anxiety because you're stressed out from work, all that stuff is going to hurt you, right? So if I were your coach and you were an athlete, I'd be like, stop doing that. You know, wake up at a better time, go to bed at a better time, all that stuff. It's really hard to say what you all should be doing because everybody's life situation is different. Some of you are working full time, some of you don't even have a job. Not anyone's situation is necessarily ideal. But I want to give you one idea to take away tonight. Obviously, there are a million things that can be said about planning your life. But here is the one idea I want to pass on, and hopefully some of you find it helpful. One thing I do when I'm planning my day is I will sit down and I will list out everything that I want to do. I don't care about the order. There's none of this like, I'm going to start with the most important thing. No, anything that comes to mind, which is usually random, just write it down. And I'm writing this down on paper. I'm not putting this in a computer. I've been obsessed with computer apps forever with this like whole thing. But that itself has a whole list of problems, which I'm not going to talk about. But I would suggest just doing this on a piece of paper. And after you've listed out everything you can think of, and random things will come up, you then take a look at the list and choose the one thing that you would regret not doing by the time you got in bed, right? So you're getting in bed and you're like, shit, I should have done that, right? If you can find that one thing, and it has to be one. So many people want to pick like 3 or like 5. They're like, I got to do these 5. No. You have to choose of those 5, which one is more important than them all. What will you have wished that you would have done before you fell asleep? Right? Like you have to like bring that to the now and say, okay, what is the most important thing? Pick that and then start working on it. If you can't work on it now, then like maybe something is not going to be ready until noon or until 4. Then pick the second most important thing. And again, it's got to be one thing. And that means letting go of a lot of things. But there are so many things on our lists which not only do not need to happen, they should not happen. Right? Like you feel like they're important, but they're not. There are so many things that if you just give them time, they often just go away. So the time you spent resolving them is completely wasted because they could have resolved themselves. Obviously, there are things that you have to get on and take care of. But if you're looking at that list, presumably it will have those things that are actually important on there because you just wrote down everything you could think of and then you pick the one. And if you don't get to important things, that's okay because you got to those things that are more important. Once you finish that one thing, then you just repeat that process again. You go back to the list. Sometimes you might add things to the list as you go throughout the day. But if you're always picking the most important thing, and it is really the most important thing, then you have to be honest with yourself. That may not be LSAT, that may not be work, that may be calling a friend because that friend is in trouble. And you're like, it's in the back of my mind, I'm going to put these other things to the side and I'm going to call that person. But if you do that first and then take care of that, then when you come back to your list, you can be 100% present because the most important thing was resolved, or at least to the extent you could, right? If you do this, then your anxiety should go down because even though some things aren't getting done, the ones that matter most are. And anxiety usually comes from this sense of like, I can't do it all, right? Or things are not happening. And often they're not happening because you're putting them off for something that's less important.